All right, we are live on another Tuesday. It is still a couple minutes before 5 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and wait a couple minutes to let people show up and get in here. Um, we'll show off what we cast last week, and then we'll get into turning. You guys have probably figured out from the title that I will be turning my very first Leveche. That is a kit from Beaufort Inc. This will be a gunmetal finish fountain pen. So I've got the instructions printed out. I've made sure my bushings are oriented correctly. We will be turning between centers tonight. So we'll just we'll give folks a few minutes to show up, to get in here. I know we're still a couple minutes till 5 o'clock, but we'll hang out for them. I'll make sure that I'm set up correctly here. Make sure my lathe is at the right setting. We're going to be turning pens, so that turning a pen. So that means we are going to be turning at fast speeds. All right. Jim, it's good to see you. How's that computer treating you? Did you have another good day? I got a message from my moderator, Todd. He might be a little bit late if he's able to show up. He had something that he needed to do today, so he might show up a little later. But if you guys haven't subscribed to Todd, he has his channel TLF Works. Before we get started, it'll still be a couple minutes. Do me a favor and head over there to subscribe to his channel. His channel link and website are in the description of this video, so just click that link real quick, hit subscribe. I know he would appreciate it. John, things are good today. I'm a little exhausted. We went. My buddy got a brand new bicycle yesterday because we ride. We do a decent amount of road cycling, so we went for about 30 or 31 miles last night, and then I was out on a ride earlier today, and my legs were just done, so I only made it about 19 miles today. Tomorrow's a rest day, so that'll be nice, but otherwise I can't complain. Another 10 hours. Fun stuff. It's just about 5 o'clock now, so we will give people a couple more minutes to get in here. This one should be a fun one tonight. You guys have probably figured out by the title, if you missed it earlier, by the title, I will be turning my very first Leveche fountain pen. I've turned fountain pens before, but this will be my first Leveche kit. It is a kit from Beaufort Inc. I believe they're based in the UK. I got the kit from Turner's Warehouse. So that's where the kit came from. I used my calipers to make sure that my bushings were oriented correctly because they are similar to the cigar in the sense that they are slightly different. So you do have to make sure that the bushings are oriented correctly. It is a capped fountain pen. Today we will be turning between centers. So we'll turn the body, then we'll take that off. We'll turn the body and sand the body. We'll take that off the lathe, put the cap on the lathe, turn and sand that, and then because we are working with a hybrid blank, I will be doing a CA finish for this blank before we take it to assembly. So that's the general plan for tonight. This was a blank that I won in an auction from Bennie and Bennie Ray and Julee Watkins. It should be. I love turning their stuff, so it should be a good one tonight. I do want to thank my top tier patrons, Mark and Angie. I do appreciate the support. If you guys are interested in Patreon, there is a link in the description. If not, no big deal. But yeah. All right, so last week we were able to cast some blanks. Here are the ring blanks that we got. These are the green, gold, and white blanks. So that'll make a good ring. We have this one here. They are dominantly green, but there are some hints of gold and white in there. So these should be good. This one's a little thinner because it was the top section, so it'll be good for a smaller diameter ring or a smaller thickness ring. Here are the two blanks that are just resin. Again, these were the same green, gold, and white. Thought those were pretty cool. And then here are the elm burl hybrids. So there's one. I really like the figure and the way that these turned out. So there's another one. The way that these burls aren't just straight and they actually have some shape and character to them. These are going to make awesome pens, whether I turn them or whether somebody else turns them. So I'm pretty excited about the way these look. So those were the castings from last week. And now we'll go ahead and move these out of the way so we can start turning momentarily. Because this is my first Leveche, I did print out instructions. It looks pretty straightforward, so you have the diagram there. I'll be referencing that, so hopefully that'll be that should be super helpful. Here's what our two blanks look like. We have the body here and the cap here. I've got my bushings inserted and ready to go. So once these get turned, it should be pretty sweet. And if I honestly don't remember exactly, but I know it's an Alumilite hybrid with, I believe it's box elder burl. I don't remember that for sure, but it looks like box elder to me. Either way, it's going to be gorgeous. So these are what we're going to turn tonight. We'll turn the body first. So I'll go ahead and put that there. We'll put the cap off to the side. I will be using the T-Shadow negative rake scraper tonight for the turning. For the most part, I'll start with that, and then I might end up moving to a different tool, but we'll see how that goes. So I think without further ado, we'll go ahead and adjust this camera a little bit just so we can have some room to turn and so you guys can kind of see what's going on. There we go. This way it's in a good position that you'll be able to see me turn, and I'll be able to momentarily, or not momentarily, but occasionally check comments. We're turning between centers, so the turning and the sanding will happen between centers, and then the CA finishing process will happen on a mandrel. Both blanks will get the CA finish treatment at the same time. All right. Let's see how close we are to being in a good spot here. And we might need to raise that up a touch. We'll start there and see what happens. We might need to make another adjustment later. I'm going to grab my face shield just so we're turning safe. This is the Leveche Bionic face shield. I do have Amazon affiliate links in the description if you're interested in checking out this face shield. Anything you guys purchase with an Amazon affiliate link helps the channel out. So that means you are spending absolutely nothing extra. You're just ordering whatever you have in your cart using my Amazon affiliate links. And you pay for that, whatever you put in your cart, and it doesn't have to be the tool that you clicked on. It can be whatever you search for while you're active on that tab. And then you pay for your items just like a normal Amazon order, and then I get a small percentage kicked back to the shop. So that's kind of cool. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started turning. I've got the lathe right now. If I turn this on, we're looking at, let's call it 3,600 RPMs. So let's go ahead and get started. Make sure we're tightened down there. And here we go. We are starting to get this pretty round, and the figure and the shape of that burl is looking pretty awesome. It's looking pretty sweet. Forgot to put the smock on, so that's what I'm going to do real quick here. Just means I can not have to be super messy later. All right, here we go. If you guys can hear me, go ahead and put that in the comments, just so I know that my mic is good. Just so I know that you guys are hearing the audio. When I'm turning this burl, the resin part is turning just fine, but the burl, it's turning fine enough, but it's definitely stabilized. It's definitely hard. Angie, what's up? Okay, the picture's blurry when I turn on the lathe. Let me see if I can back this up just a little bit to see if the vibration doesn't transfer to the tripod. Hopefully that does a little better. All right. This is a not sure if this is just a tough turn or if my tool needs rotated. The cutter might need rotated. Right now we are turning the body to a Leveche fountain pen. think this burl is just really, really hard because it was stabilized. Because the resin, the Alumilite is cutting just fine, but the burl is giving me a run for my money. That means Bennie did a good job. There is a definite taper to this body. This burl, when I'm turning it, is just turning to dust as soon as the tool hits it. But the finish that I'm getting off the tool is just insane. All right, we'll keep turning. Angie, no worries. No worries. We just started turning. We're gonna turn. I'm gonna turn my first Leveche tonight. It's a gunmetal kit. It's a fountain pen. I got it from Turner's Warehouse. The link for that is in the description if you're interested. So just like most of my other stuff, the links are in the description. Jim, I'm glad that the picture's much better. I'm glad I could get that fixed. Sorry about that earlier. Let's adjust just a little bit and keep turning. I feel like I've been fighting this burl the whole entire way. It just turns to powder dust when I turn it. All right, at this point, I'm getting fairly close to the bushings. I am going to momentarily switch tools. I have this homemade negative rake scraper, or not negative rake scraper. I have this homemade carbide tool. It's got the negative rake insert on it. It's the square radius cutter, and this is all homemade. We've got a brass collar, I've got a laminated Paduke and curly maple handle, even though it's super dirty, but it was a lot cheaper than buying some of the commercial options. So I actually have 5 homemade tools, and then I have 4 commercial tools. Okay, let's keep turning. Let's raise this up a little bit. That might be a little too high. All right, let's go. Okay. We're getting there. We're almost there. And again, we're turning at about 3,600 RPMs. We are just about there, so I'm going to switch over to my 120 grit gouge, affectionately known as sandpaper. This shouldn't take too much at all. I do turn the lathe down some when I do this, and I do put the lathe in reverse when I sand. So right now I'm just sanding to get down to the bushings, and I'm really close right now, so this shouldn't take a horribly long time. When sanding, you want to make sure that you keep moving the sandpaper. Heat buildup is the enemy, so if you notice that a part of the blank is getting hot, go ahead and stop and let it cool down before you continue. The nice thing about having a lathe that runs in reverse is, especially when you're doing a wood blank, it reverses the way the grain is turning, so it's able to you're able to sand to an even better finish. And we're actually really close here. I'm just checking with my finger to see if there's any ridges between the blank and the bushing. I like to check while the lathe is running, but then what I'll do is I'll turn this off and I'll run. Okay. I think we're pretty good there. All right, so I'm going to put aside the 120 and I'm going to move over to the Abernet. Okay. So when I sand, now I'm going to sand this blank up to 400 with Abernet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my belt to the first position, and I'll be able to sand at a much lower speed, which keeps the heat down. Now this first grit is 120 grit, just like the last one, so I'm actually not going to spend a whole lot of time here. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a last once over with the 120. And for the regulars, I probably sound like a broken record. But once I finish with the lathe on, I'm going to turn the lathe off, and I'm going to get rid of some of these circular scratches by manually rotating the blank with the lathe off and just running more or less with the grain or long ways. Again, this is a hybrid blank from Bennie and Julee Watkins that I won in an auction. So we're going to turn this one tonight. We're not going to. We are currently turning this one tonight. Now we can move on to the next grit, and then it's just going to be the same thing. We're going to spend a little bit of time here. When we sand, we're going to keep moving. I might work on a section of the blank. I might work on the right side or the left side or the center a little more than other sections, but I'm always moving just so I don't sand a divot into my blank. Okay, we're going to turn the lathe off and rotate by hand and take out these circular scratches. This is 180 grit sandpaper. What do you guys think about Tuesday nights in terms of a live stream? Is there a night that would work better? Because I've been toying with the idea of moving the live stream day. I would probably still keep the time, or would a different time work better? What do you guys think? I know it's hard to get everybody because I'm in the Eastern time zone, so if I start too late, I'll be able to catch the West Coast people, but then it's really late for me. So I don't know what the right answer is for that. So what are your guys' thoughts? What are your guys' thoughts on day and time of live streams? This third grit was 240. So now I'm going to rotate by hand. So 120, 180, 240 is what we're working on now. And then we have two more. We have 320 and then 400. So this is 320. This is going to finish just amazingly. Now, normally when I have a hybrid, I know if it's just resin, I micro mesh and don't put any CA finish on. But when I have a hybrid of any sort, even when there is resin, I follow my CA finishing method. So I'm going to sand this. I'm going to dry sand to 400. I'm going to clean with denatured alcohol. And then I'm going to put my CA finish on. Then I'll micro mesh. But before we do that, we have to turn the other blank because there is a cap to this. Right now we're working on the body. We're finishing up the body. And after I get done running through this last hand sanding of Abranet at 400, I'll be able to put this blank aside and we'll be able to start turning the cap. I like to hit the Abranet on my hand a couple times just to get some of the dust free from the paper. Now I'm going to leave these bushings in this in the blank just so I can keep them oriented. The nice thing though with this blank is I have oriented the wood towards the outer ends of the pen, so that's another way I can double check to make sure I have this oriented correctly. So we'll put the body aside for now, and we'll put the cap between centers, and we'll get ready to turn this guy. The cap's a little shorter, and the bushings are closer to the same diameter. They're not the same diameter, so it is important to check that. But this one, they're also larger, so take much material. So this should go quicker. We're gonna move the belt to a position where it allows the lathe to go faster. We're going to make sure we turn the lathe back into the forward position. Not that I've ever tried to turn in reverse and tried to figure out why my tools weren't cutting correctly. Has anybody done that? Okay. East Central Indiana. What's up? What's going on, Tim? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and turn. We're going to bring back our negative rake magical skew. I'm going to double check to see that my positioning of my tool rest is accurate. I think we'll start there. And we will get to turning this second blank. So here we go. I think I'm just a bit low here, so we'll raise this tool rest a skosh. That is a technical unit of measurement, by the way, just in case anybody asks. And that seems to be cutting much better. Sometimes it's the little adjustments that make a big difference. Normally I turn with a dust collector on, but because I'm on a live stream, I don't use the dust collector because it would just be way too loud, and I don't have a remote control to turn it on and off. So I just clean up after the live stream. This burl just turns to dust when it gets turned. It's going to be gorgeous when finished. This cap is a slightly tougher turn, only because there's more burl in this piece, and the burl is stabilized, so it's a little, it's just a harder turn. It's not specifically difficult, it's just a little more time consuming. I know I said just a little bit ago that I thought this would be quicker, and it still might, but I forgot that there was this much burl in this blank. All right, we're going to go ahead and switch over to the homemade carbide tool, just because I thought that cut a little bit better, and that might just be due to the fact that I need to rotate the cutter head, like I said earlier. Otherwise, I do love that tool. It really shines with resin blanks, so I do use that quite a bit. And this blank is just going to be slow and steady wins the race. Here's an open-ended question. What are you guys looking forward to? It could be anything. What are you guys looking forward to? Right now, I'm just taking light cuts, and I'm staying slow and steady because I don't want to force this blank into a million pieces. I've talked on live streams before about how I turn with a heavy hand, and I really am trying to be better about that, especially on a piece like this. It's a harder piece because it's stabilized. That doesn't mean that I need to hunker down and press even harder. It just means I need to slow down and take my time with light cuts, because I'm turning at about 3,500 RPMs, give or take, 3,600, more or less. Sometimes some turns are easier than others. Sometimes you just get a tough one like this. Now, that's not to say the blank is bad, because the blank is awesome. The blank is great. Sometimes you just have to work for it a little bit. Get my trusty toothbrush. All right, let's check our progress. Oh, this is going to be awesome. All right, so I think I'm getting to a point where if I'm smart, I'm going to switch to the sandpaper. So we're going to turn the speed down a touch. We're going to flip the lathe into reverse, and we will take the blank down to the bushings. Okay. Here we go. When I sand, I also clear the dust off of the sandpaper frequently, because that's another culprit of heat buildup. The more you can keep dust and chips from building up, the lower the heat will be, because you'll have less friction. Right now I'm working the entire blank, but I'm also noticing that I'm really close on the tailstock end, and I've got a little more work to do on the headstock end of the blank. So I'm going to keep my sandpaper moving, but I am going to focus a little more on the headstock end of the blank. We're pretty close on the tailstock end, and we've got just a little bit of ways to go on the headstock end. I mentioned earlier that this this blank, these bushings were different diameters. So there is a slight taper on this cap. It's not just a straight even diameter bushing. They aren't, the bushings aren't just the same diameter. So that is something to keep in mind if you're going to turn one of these, to make sure that your bushings are oriented correctly. This is, in my opinion, this is a lot easier to, the bushings are a lot easier to orient than a cigar, just because there are two different size tubes in the body and the cap. The body has a diameter, or the body has a tube that is 25/64, and the cap is 15/32. So only two of the bushings will fit in one of the pens, or in one of the tubes, and then the other two will go in the other tube. So you've got a 50-50 shot at getting it right. Whereas the cigar, it's all 10 millimeters, and you could easily screw that up like 100 different ways. And I think we're just about ready to go to the Abranet for this cap. Oh yeah, we've got a little bit of an issue there, but I think that'll be okay with the CA finish. So let's go ahead and take our Abranet, and again, Abranet is the 5 pads that I have. It's dry sandpaper, 120, 180, 240, 320, and 400 grits. So we've lowered the speed, we've turned it down even further, we're still in reverse, and we're off with our 120 grit. Again, this is the same exact process as the other blank. So I'm just going to do a light sanding with 120, because we already put we already put a 120 grit on this blank to get it down to the bushings, and then we're just going to sand with the grain to get rid of some of those circular scratches. There we go. So 120 is done. Moving on to 180. This is a hybrid blank, so I will be doing a CA finish. With my hybrid blanks, I know when I do resin-only blanks that I just micro mesh, polish, and don't use a finish per se. But what I do with my hybrid blanks is I treat them as if they were a wood blank. So I dry sand to 400, then I will put denatured alcohol on them to clean them off. Then I will put a CA finish on them. After the CA finish, we'll micro mesh, and then we will go through the polishing system that I use. That's Novus 3, 2, and 1. 3 is the heavy scratch remover, 2 is the fine scratch remover, and 1 is the polish. So we will do that, and then after the Novus, these blanks will be ready for assembly. And I will use a mandrel to go through the finishing process tonight. So everything that I just explained, from denatured alcohol on, I will be done on a mandrel. And that's just so I can do both blanks at once. All right. That was 240, so now we have 320. Once again, we are sanding with the grain, if there is such thing as grain in resin and burls. Burls can be tricky. I know they do have grain, but it can be all over the place. That's what makes them so gorgeous. But we are sanding horizontally. And now we're at 400. So this is dry sanding with 400. And you really want to do your best to only sand the blank and not bring any of the metal dust onto the metal dust from the bushings onto the blank. Once I finish rotating this by hand, we will be done with All right, guys, sorry about that. I don't know what happened, and I'm not sure. What happened. Okay, I think we're back now. Sorry. I will flip this camera. I don't know what happened. It just said something went wrong. So I'm going to flip the camera back to the lathe. There we go. Now, what I was saying before, we lost the feed. I'm not sure when we lost the feed, but all I did was I finished sanding the blanks up to 400 grit. Now I'm getting ready for my CA finish, so I'm using these non-stick bushings from T-Shadow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bushing on here. I'm going to keep my pen oriented in the direction, in the correct direction. So I'm going to take the turn between center bushings out. I'm going to put this blank here. I'm going to put this non-stick bushing here. This other blank for the cap I need to take these out. Now it's going to be stubborn. There we go. Now I know that the burl pieces are on the ends. I'm going to adjust this mandrel just a skosh. Again, it's another technical term. And I'm going to thread this washed around to here. All right, so now we can take our turn between center bushings and we can put them away. Now that we're ready for our finishing process. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to bring the tailstock up. My lathe is already set to the slower speed. I'm going to get some of this mess off the lathe. We're going to put our towel down just so we can minimize any of our mess. And we are going to put denatured alcohol on this blank so we can get this cleaned up and looking good. I'm going to tear a few sheets of blue shop cloth, blue shop towel, just so I have it for my CA finish. And my polishing. All right. So first things first, let's go ahead and put some denatured alcohol on here. When you put denatured alcohol on the blanks, you want to make sure that it ends up that it completely dries off, because that moisture, you don't want that moisture in your CA finish. So what I'll do is I'll just hand wipe on this denatured alcohol for now. And then what I like to do is I like to take the other side. I'll turn this on. I'll turn the lathe on. We'll be about there we go. There we go. Be about 750-ish RPMs. And I'll just do one more wipe with the denatured alcohol, and then I'll let that spin until it's dry. All right. while that's spin drying, we can set up for our CA finish. When I do my CA finish, I will turn the lathe down as slow as it goes. Get my activator here. We have our mercury flex. I'm at the end of my 1 bottle of mercury flex, so a lot of times it tends to be stubborn and doesn't necessarily want to come off too well. So sometimes I need to persuade it with some vice grips. All right. It might just be time to break into the other bottle of mercury flex because this one is getting definitely towards the end of its life. All right. So now I'm ready to start my CA finish. We're going to go 7 coats, spraying activator in between. I'm going to turn my lathe on into forward instead of reverse. We're running at about 215 RPMs. That is the slowest that this lathe will go, so that's what we're doing. Seven coats, spraying activator in between each. So here we go. Here's 1, 1, and activator. Probably don't need quite that much activator, but it's not going to hurt anything. So now we're going to start the second coat. 2, 2. If I'm not sure how many coats I've done, one of the things I like to do, I like to put the coat on and then rip off the paper towel and set it down. That way I can see how many pieces of blue shop cloth I've gone through, and that'll tell me right there how many coats I've done. So I rip it off, set it down, and I know that there's 3 there, so that was my 3rd coat of 7. So now we're on to 4. So here's 4. And activator. Five. You want to make sure you get the entire blank. You don't want to miss any section of blank. Activator. This will be coat 6. And one more. And there's my 7th coat. I'm going to spray activator. And now I'm just going to let that sit for a minute just to kind of do its thing. Got some CA glue on my finger. All right, let's take a look. I know this blank might be a little far away for you guys because I still haven't figured out the camera situation too much yet. But you know, you guys will definitely see this when we go to assemble it. I am super excited about this one. All right, so now what we have is we have to micro mesh. So what I'll do is I'll bring out my micro mesh. I will adjust my belt one more time. I'll put it in the middle so I have that middle range, and I'll probably run anywhere between 12 and 1400 RPMs. Right now, this is sitting at 935, so I'm going to move this up a bit. Okay. Right now, we're a little north, 1380, give or take. All right, so now we are going to micro mesh. So 9 grits. And I don't spend a whole lot of time here. Now I'm going to move to the other blank. I usually count to 10 or 15 in my head, and then I move on. I also don't put a whole lot of pressure here because I don't want to sand through the finish that I just did. This is the part that normally goes pretty quick. Especially when I do a CA finish. Sometimes the micro mesh takes a little bit longer if it's just a resin blank. But with it being a hybrid and with the fact that I did a CA finish, the micro mesh process generally goes pretty quick. We've got 3 more grits. We've got this purple one, we've got a blue one, and then we've got a pink one. 1500 grit all the way up to 12,000 is what micromesh is rated at. Now, if I remember correctly, the micromesh grits don't exactly match up to the to just regular sandpaper grit. I don't know what the conversion factor is, if that is the case. But the idea is that the lower the grit, the rougher the pad, the higher the grit, the smoother the pad. So by the end, you're almost polishing. I did recently get some Zona paper, but I haven't tried it out yet. So I will be hoping to feature that in a live stream coming up in the future. One more. All right, so now I'm going to let that spin for just a second while I put the micro mesh away. I'm going to grab a blue shop cloth or a piece of blue shop cloth, and I'm going to dry these blanks. Because we don't want to polish wet blanks. That would be not ideal. And you can see just how much you can see just how much moisture we took off the blank there. All right. So let's go ahead and turn this off. Man, this blank is looking sharp. So what we're going to do, we're going to get our Novus out. Novus 3, 2, and 1. Heavy scratch, fine scratch, and polish. Heavy scratch remover, fine scratch remover, and polish. And we are going to grab some blue shop cloth, and we're going to keep it at that same almost 1400 RPMs. And we're going to start with Novus 3. We're going to put a dab of Novus 3 onto this blue shop cloth. Just had a little bit of buildup in there, so I'm clearing that out. We'll put this on both blanks, and then we'll work it into both blanks. I have a little bit too much on there. That's what happens when the nozzle gets clogged. Sometimes it happens. And we're just going to work this in until it appears that it doesn't seem to show any blatant white streaks in there from the color of the Novus 3. So now that we have that, I'm going to put some of that, and then I'm going to take a clean piece of cloth, and with a little bit of pressure, with firm pressure but not heavy pressure, I'm just going to run the clean piece of shop cloth across the blank. I'm going to rotate this to a clean piece on the shop cloth, and I'm just going to do the same thing to the other blank. This just takes off any of the Novus that didn't get worked in. So now we're going to rinse and repeat for Novus 2. So we're going to put a dab of Novus 2, which is the fine scratch remover, onto our paper towel. And we're just going to put it onto both blanks. There we go. And we're just going to work it in just like we did Novus 1. I'll go between blanks just so they get more or less evenly worked in. And now that those are evenly worked in, we can wipe them off. So I'm going to take a clean section of the cloth, and I'm going to, with firm pressure but not too much pressure, just take off whatever's still on there. I'll rotate again to another clean section and do the same for the other blank. There we go. And now we can go to polish. So polish, I spray directly onto the paper towel, not paper towel, blue shop cloth. At this point, you guys know what I'm talking about. And then I just work in the polish. This just gives it a little bit of extra shine. All right, now I take one more piece of blue shop cloth and I just dry off whatever moisture is on the blank, whether it be from the polish or whatever else might have been there. And now we are ready to take this off the mandrel and off and go to our assembly of this pen. So I'm going to take this off the lathe. I'm going to take these blanks off the lathe. And I want to keep these oriented correctly so I know that the wood portion goes towards either end. So the resin is in the middle. There we go. I'm going to put this blank over here. Now we'll take this guy off the lathe. All right, so I'm going to move you guys over to our assembly table. So if you bear with me, the camera's going to move just a touch. This is the part of the show where you get to see how much I need to clean the shop because there's disasters everywhere. Okay. Now that we are almost in our final spot, I'm going to adjust this just a tad. There we go. Now you can see you guys can see that I have my instructions here. I have my kit here. This is the kit I got from Turner's Warehouse. It is the Leveche fountain pen in gunmetal. It requires a 25/64 drill bit, which is the body, and then the 15/32 drill bit is the cap. Now I'm going to consult my instructions here, and I'm going to look at the diagram to lay out my parts. And I'm especially going to lay out my parts considering I've never actually assembled one of these. Okay. Before I do that, I'm just going to clean up the ends here. There might be a slight fingernail of CA on either end, so I'm just going to make sure that those are flush so I don't have to worry about that later. Yep. And this is just a 220 grit orbital sanding pad that I have. I wouldn't do anything too aggressive because you're just trying to remove a very small amount of material. We have our blanks, our turned blanks oriented correctly. So now we have, okay, so our nib section, let's take these out. There's a lot of parts to this. This is why it's good to be organized. Okay, so this is the nib connector. So it's going to go like this. It's going to get pressed into there. The cap. Okay, that's going to go there. This is the nib barrel finial, so it's going to go up here. This is the cap finial, so the cap finial is going to go on the other end, right there. Okay, this is going to be the center band, so it's going to go right there. We have our clip that goes this way. Our clip is going to go right with our cap finial. And then we have our section and our ink. This is the first time that I've seen a kit come with blue ink. That's not necessarily a problem, that's just an observation. We're probably not going to use this guy. We're going to use the converter cartridge. So the ink converter cartridge is there. This is the section for the fountain pen. So this is going to get threaded onto this guy when we get there. So this is what our rough layout of parts looks like. Now, I know that okay, let me do this. My diagram shows this being flipped, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip this here, which means this goes like this, and this goes like this. So I think I was actually okay. I just want to double check because I've never actually assembled one of these. So we'll start with the cap first. We're going to slide the clip onto this finial. Now I want to make sure we're clear here. Now there is a little spot. Let me just make sure we're good here. Okay. There is a little spot here that I think that's where I want the clip to go. So I'm going to start by pressing in this clip, and I'm just going to get it started. Now I should still be able to rotate this cap. Maybe not. All right. Well, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get my punches out. And we're going to get this positioned correctly the first time. I guess at this point it would be the second time. So I'm just going to take a hammer and knock out the top finial. I'm also trying to be careful because I don't want these pieces to go flying everywhere. Hopefully I won't have to use that again. Now I want to get this placed right the first time. So I'm going to place it right there. And we should be able to press this in. Okay, there's the clip and finial. Now this goes on like this. And then this gets pressed in to this end. So we'll go ahead and extend our pen press just a little more. There we go. We'll get this started. And then we should be able to put another spacer down. And there's that center band. All right. Now we're going to move to the body. For the body, this, they call it a nib connector. The nib connector is going to get pressed in. So we'll go ahead and do that now. You want to make sure when you press pens together that that you're as straight as possible, because if you're crooked, that could ruin the entire pen. And that's no fun, especially you've done all this work up to this point, and then you get all the way here, and then it's ruined. So now you have this nib barrel finial, and that gets pressed into here. So we'll go ahead and press that in. Actually, I'm going to flip this around. See if we can get that started a little bit. Okay, we've got that there. Got this here. It's all about small adjustments sometimes. There we go. There's that piece. That finial screwed in. Now I'm not going to put ink in this right away, but what you would do is you would insert the cartridge here. There's a little needle inside here that pierces this cartridge, and that's what allows the ink to draw in. I'll do that at a later date when I'm ready to put ink in there, but it would be the same for this ink cartridge. When you're ready, you just put it in there. That little needle pierces the ink there, and then it's ready to write with. But now this nib just threads onto the body like so, and you have the pen. Now from here, you should be able to put this on here. This threads on like that, and you've got your completed pen. And that's all it takes. I really think this one turned out pretty awesome. I had a lot of fun on this one. Really sorry about the technical difficulties towards the second third there. Hopefully I wasn't. Hopefully I didn't lose you guys for too long. Hopefully you guys are still here. If not, that's okay. I understand. But this one was a lot of fun. I'll have the full write-up tomorrow on my website, cross-cut-creations.com. If you'd like to support the shop, Amazon affiliate links are a great way to do that. They are in the description of this video, as well as on my website under the Tools I Use tab. If you click on any of those links, whatever you buy using that link, a small portion of that goes back to the shop if you use those links. And it doesn't have to be that tool. It can be whatever. It can be whatever. You can go search for whatever else if you're planning on using Amazon. And I still get a small percentage of that. So that's an easy way to not spend any extra, but also support what I do here at the Crosscut Creations shop. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight. This one was a lot of fun. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. So I really appreciate you guys. Jim, I appreciate that. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I know I've said that like 7 times already, but sometimes it happens. Angie saw I. Not quite sure what that means. Saw an old video of you turning a rolling pin. Can you turn one during the live feed? Yeah, I can do that. That was actually that was either a Christmas gift or a birthday gift for my wife. So yeah, that's actually I'll definitely put that on the list. That's on the list. Turning a ring is on the list. I promise. But yeah, I'm always open to suggestions. So if you guys have suggestions of what you guys want to see in future live streams, I'll definitely put them on the list, and we'll eventually get to them 1 week at a time. So yeah, I'm also working on a video now for one of the chaos blanks that I turned from RJB Wood Turner. I'm still working on that one. Lately life has just it hasn't been bad. It's just been super busy, and the things I've been working on have not quite been the things they're things that I need to work on, and not the things I want to work on. But that isn't the end of the world. So yeah, I'll definitely put a rolling pin on the list. If you guys have any other suggestions, feel free to email me. My email and social media links are all in the description of this video, as well as a Patreon link if you'd like to support me that way. Again, thank you to Mark and Angie for supporting me on Patreon. I really appreciate your guys' support. So if you guys want to have a conversation here, I'll talk with you guys as long as you want. Otherwise, we can call it a night, and we'll see you next week.